She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because she figured you out. And in her world, certainty doesn't create safety. It kills desire. She didn't crave perfection. She craved mystery. And you, my friend, became solved. The world doesn't reward loyalty. It respects restraint. And the most powerful restraint you'll ever master? Control over yourself. You were trained to be kind, to give endlessly, to love openly, to ask for nothing. They told you that goodness was a path, that selflessness would win her over. But they lied. Machiavelli wouldn't have scoffed out of cruelty. He would have laughed, because he understood what most men never learn. Power isn't given. It's taken. And it's taken by those who control the battlefield within. She didn't pull away because you lacked value. She pulled away because you were always there, too available, too open, too easy to reach. You weren't a mystery. You were a solved equation. And what's predictable can be controlled. And what's controlled can't be desired. That glint in her eyes, the one that once made you feel immortal, wasn't love. It was instinct, the ancient dance of polarity. But you never learned the rhythm. You mistook her curiosity for commitment, her testing for tenderness. Machiavelli once wrote, "A ruler does not need to be good. He only needs to survive. And survival doesn't come from chasing approval. It comes from becoming unshakable, not numb, not cold, but calm, anchored, immovable, because in the silent war between men and women, power doesn't go to the loudest or even the strongest. It goes to the most unreadable, the man who doesn't fold, the one who doesn't over-explain, who doesn't try to prove he's worthy, because worth isn't proven, it's embodied. Women aren't drawn to emotional chaos. They're drawn to composure, to the man who can feel but doesn't flood, who speaks only when the silence has served its purpose, who shows fragments, not his entire soul. Most men are desperate to be seen, so they rush, they overshare, they compliment too fast, they confess too much, and every one of those moves whispers the same truth. I need you to like me. And nothing kills attraction faster than need. You thought you were being romantic, but to her, it looked like surrender. She didn't leave out of cruelty. She left because her biology told her, this man is centered on me, not himself. And that doesn't feel like devotion. It feels like danger. No one taught you this. Attraction isn't built on access. It's built on tension. Not in what you reveal, but in what you protect. Your presence should feel rare. Your attention should feel earned. Because anything freely given is quietly discarded. You don't need to be cold, but you do need to be calculated. You don't need to vanish, but you must be deliberate. Because when she looks at you, she's not admiring your face. She's scanning your frame. Is he stable? Is he led by impulse or grounded by purpose? And if she senses your world revolves around her, she'll retreat. Not because she's cruel, but because something deep within her knows. A man who bends too soon can be broken even faster. Machiavelli never wrote about love. He wrote about leadership. But what he taught rulers applies to you. If you don't govern your emotions, someone else will. And the moment she realizes she can pull your strings, she'll lose the desire to stay connected to your soul. Not because she's broken, but because you gave her control over something she was never meant to hold. When she tests you, be the wall, not the mirror. She won't tell you she's testing you. She doesn't have to, because her silence will. Her absence will. The shift in her tone. The space between her replies. The sudden distance where warmth used to live. That's the test. And most men fail it. They chase. They explain. They panic. They fold. Not because they're bad men, but because they built their center around her comfort. Not their own grounding. But you must be different. Because when she pulls back, she's not asking, do you care? She's asking, can you hold your frame? She's not trying to destroy you. She's trying to find you. She wants to see what happens when the room gets cold. Do you shiver? Or do you burn from within? You thought she was losing interest. You thought you needed to win her back. But this was never about attraction. It was about calibration. Because every woman, consciously or not, is scanning for something deeper than charm. Leadership, not dominance, not bravado, but the quiet, immovable confidence of a man who leads himself. He doesn't beg for clarity. He doesn't panic when tension rises. He doesn't betray his values just to keep the peace. He holds. He breathes. He remains. She's not looking for another mirror. She's surrounded by those, men who reflect her mood, echo her words, adapt until they vanish. That's not strength. That's erosion. And she feels it, not as love, but as weight. Because when you become the mirror, you ask her to carry the structure. And she doesn't want to lead. She wants to lean, but only if what she leans on doesn't collapse under pressure. So when she gets quiet, don't fill the silence. When she steps back, don't step forward in desperation. Hold the line, not to manipulate, to demonstrate that you don't orbit her approval. You generate your own gravity. Because her distance isn't a door closing, it's a sensor scan. She wants to know if you'll abandon yourself to hold on to her. And the moment you do, you become replaceable. A man who molds too easily is a man who can't be trusted in chaos. And chaos, whether she admits it or not, is what life always brings. Machiavelli would call this moment what it is: a loyalty test. Not hers to you, yours to yourself. And most men fail it, not because they're weak, but because no one ever taught them that emotional presence is earned by stillness, not speeches. She doesn't want your poetry. She wants your poise. You don't need to explain who you are. You just need to show that you won't dissolve trying to prove it. Because if she can shake you, she can never fully trust you. And what she truly desires isn't submission. It's solidity. So when the temperature drops, don't perform. Don't protest. Don't plead. Remain. Still. Grounded. Zen. And in that stillness, she won't see indifference. She'll see power, not the loud kind, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that builds temples, the kind that weathers storms. Because in that silence, she sees the one thing that makes her feel safe in a world full of noise. A man who cannot be moved by uncertainty. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. And you've been addicted. She left because you didn't chase her. Because you loved her. Certainly doesn't create her because safety. Somewhere deep inside, desire. You were starving. She didn't crave perfection, but for confirmation, mystery. You needed her and you, my friend, to tell became Saul. You exist. The world doesn't reward loyalty. You matter. It respects restraint. That's not love. And the most powerful restraint you will ever master. And Machiavelli, had he lived in your time, wouldn't have judged trained to be kind. He would have warned to give endlessly. Because any man who ties his value to another person's validation, they told you that given away his crown. That selflessness didn't begin with her over. It began long before. Machiavelli told you that being good meant being agreeable. He would have laughed. That being like meant being because safe. He understood that being chosen never was the highest honor power isn't given. It's taken. You adapted, and it's taken by those who control the battlefield. You learned to smile when it hurt. She didn't pull away yes when you everything inside you screamed. She pulled away because you were listened more than you spoke. Too available. You gave more than you received. Too easy to reach. You silenced your truth. You weren't a keep her happy. You were a solid every time you did. And what's predictable you weren't loving, controlled. You were bargaining. And what's controlled can't be desired. Trading pieces of your soul that glint in her eyes of approval. The one that once made you feel immortal wasn't love. One hit, instinct, feel alive, the ancient dance of polarity. You start to forget who never learned the rhythm. 3 you mistook her curiosity for begging, commitment, burning herself testing out just to orbit. Machiavelli once wrote, but because you believe being chosen made you real. He only needs to survive. But here's the dark truth. And survival doesn't come from chasing approval. And once she senses comes from becoming unshakable. She doesn't need to respect you. Not numb. She can manage you. Not out of cruelty, anchored, instinct, immovable. Because people manage what they don't admire. Between men and women. They use what they don't fear. Power doesn't go to the loudest. And when you offer your identity even up the strongest, you become a product, not a presence. The man who doesn't fold. The man who doesn't over-explain. Who waits by the phone. Who doesn't try to prove he's worthy. Who shapes his thoughts to fit hers. Because worth isn't proven. Who apologizes for being inconvenient. Women aren't drawn to whatever you need before they're drawn to composure. That man who can feel desire, but doesn't flood. He inspires fatigue. Who speaks only because when she doesn't want a man orbiting her like a moon. Who shows fragments. She wants a sun, not his entire burning soul. From his own core. Most men are desperate. Machiavelli didn't write about love. They wrote about power. They compliment too fast. In its truest form. They confess too much. Comes from detachment. And every one of those moves whispers the same truth. You need her recognition. I need you to like me. You need your own. And nothing kills attraction. If your value rises and falls, you thought you were being romantic. But to her, no longer a man. It looked like surrender. You're a mirror. She didn't leave out reflecting whatever she wants. She left because her biology never walked away. But this man is centered on me, not because she stopped loving. And that doesn't feel like devotion. Because there was nothing behind the glass. It feels like danger. No substance. No one taught you this. No edge. Attraction isn't built on access. Just reflection. It's built on just need. Not on what you reveal. No woman can complete you. Your presence should feel rare. Amplify what's your attention should feel if you come to her empty. Because anything asking for identity is quietly discarded. You don't need to be cold. Silence, but you not do because need to be calculated. You don't need to vanish. Your value must be never yours to begin with. Because when she looks at you, stop chasing the she's not admiring your face. Reclaim your frame. You weren't born to audition. Is he led by you were born to reign, grounded by purpose, not with arrogance. And if she senses your quiet revolves around her, you weren't made to perform for love. Not because made to embody it, but because something deep within her knows. But the kind that walks bends too soon, even if no one even faster. The Machiavelli never wrote about love. Stillness. He wrote about leadership. Control what he taught rulers applies to you. It's restraint. If you don't govern your emotions, the difference between a spark someone else will. And the moment she realizes she can pull your kingdom, every man loses the desire to stay connected to your soul. Not because she's broken. They rage too soon. But because you gave her control early over something she was never meant to hold. And then when she tests why she pulls away, be the wall, not because they're broken. She won't tell you. No one taught them what to do with the fire. She doesn't have to. You were told to silence will, to express your feelings. But what they never told you was this: the space between expression without structure, the sudden distance where Machiavelli said, "It is better to be fear than love." And most men fail. If you cannot be they both. Chase, but fear without self-mastery, they panic, becomes chaos. They fold, and chaos not because they're bad respect, but because they built their center around her comfort. True power, their own grounding, the kind that walks into a room and silences it without a word. Because when she pulls doesn't come from noise. She's not asking. It comes from presence. She's asking. Presence is born in hold composure. Your frame. You think she's not trying to destroy you, but she's trying to find you. Without roots, she wants to see what happens when the room it excites her. Do you then exhausts her, or because she doesn't want a man who feels everything? You thought she was. She wanted a man who feels deeply. You thought you needed to win her back. What the world sees. But this was never a man who can feel heartbreak. It was about calibration. Still move forward because every woman, feel rage, consciously or not, still choose is scanning for something deeper than feel love and still not spill it. Not dominance, emotional control, not bravado, not robotic, but the quiet, not movable confidence, but refined leads himself. Because she will test you. He doesn't beg for clarity. Not out of doesn't panic when intention rises. A woman's nervous system is built to scan for instability. Not with words, with senses. He breathes. She feels remains in the way your she's voice not looking rises. For another mirror. And how fast she's surrounded by those. In the tremor, men who reflect your "I'm fine." Echo her words. And when she senses chaos until they vanish, she retreats. That's not strength. Because if you can't regulate your own state, and she how feels can you possibly not as love, but as weight. So you must because when you become the mirror, feels every storm to carry the structure, and still chooses as and weather. She doesn't want to lead. Doesn't react. She wants to lean, but only if what she leans on doesn't collapse under pressure. On his time. So not when she gets quiet, don't feel because he's sovereign. When she steps back, you don't broadcast. Don't step forward in desperation. You refine it. Your hold desire, the line. You don't chase manipulate. You command to demonstrate that you don't orbit her approval. You don't generate your own gravity. You honor it in silence because her until someone's earned isn't a door closing. This is not a sensor scan. It's strategy. She wants to know if because intensity might hold on to her. But it's the moment that makes her trust you. You become replaceable. She doesn't want to carry your chaos. A man who molds too easily. She wants to feel safe and can't be trusted in chaos. If your emotions echo her chaos, she'll feel she admits it or not. If they ground life, always she'll surrender. Machiavelli so the next time she call this moment what it is. Emotional loyalty test. Silence. Not hers to you. Tests. Yours don't to yourself. Don't and chase. Most men fail it. Don't explode. Not because they're weak, but because no one ever taught them that emotional presence is earned by not because you don't feel. Not speeches, but because you do. She doesn't want your poetry. How and when that power she wants your poise. That is, you don't need masculinity who you are in its final form. You just need to show that you strength isn't about shutting your emotions because if she can shake you, it's about owning them so completely that they no longer and what she truly desires. And when she sees that, when she senses that nothing she does can shake your access, don't perform. She exhales. Don't protest. Not because she wants to control you, remain, but because she finally feels safe enough not to. Zen. That stillness, and in that stillness, that restraint, she won't see indifference. That quiet flame that she'll doesn't flicker power, in a storm. Not the loud man she remembers. Not the kind that demands attention. The man, the kind that builds temples. The man she follows. The kind that weathers storms. Not because he asked, in that silence, but because his presence at everything. The one thing that makes her feel safe in a world full of noise. A man who cannot be moved by uncertainty. The strategic power of unpredictability. The man she stops desiring isn't the one who failed. It's the one she figured out. Not because he lacked depth, but because he showed too much of it, too soon, too often. You thought consistency was connection. You were taught that showing up every day, always being available, always answering, always giving, would prove your devotion. But what you created was predictability. And predictability doesn't feel safe to her. It feels dead. Because attraction isn't born in comfort. It's born in tension, not chaos, but uncertainty. She doesn't crave routine. She craves rhythm, not a schedule, but a pulse. And the moment she can map out your next move, she no longer feels pulled by your presence. She feels dulled by it. You became emotional software. Reliable, predictable, forgettable. But the man who understands his game plays by different rules. He knows that mystery isn't manipulation, it's maintenance. The sacred tension that keeps the fire alive. He isn't always there. He isn't always reachable. He doesn't text back the moment she hits send, not to punish, but to create gravity. Machiavelli said, "A prince must learn how not to be good when the situation demands it." And in the world of desire, too much goodness becomes passivity. Too much consistency becomes noise. The powerful man finishes intentionally, withdraws not to disappear, but to become rare, not to play games, but to control rhythm, because love is music, and music lives in the spaces between notes. Too much sound, and it's just noise. So let her wonder, let her wait, let her ask silently, where is he right now? Not just in body, but in mind. That space, that unknown, it doesn't repel her. It pulls her in, because the man she can't fully define is the man she can't fully dismiss. You want to be unforgettable? Don't give more. Give less with purpose. A compliment that only comes once in weeks lands like a thunderclap. A smile held an extra second electrifies her nerves. A message delayed by calm indifference becomes a poem. This isn't withholding love. This is shaping energy, tuning frequency, owning presence. Because when you give everything up front, she stops earning you. And what she doesn't earn, she doesn't value. Women don't drift because they stop loving. They drift because they stop wondering. So be kind, but not always available. Be warm, but not always accessible. Be present, but never predictable. Control the rhythm, and you control the pull. Because love that's always there becomes wallpaper. But love that's sculpted, measured, scarce, becomes obsession. This isn't manipulation. It's psychological architecture. And if you master it, you won't have to beg for attention. You'll command it with absence. She'll lean in, not because you pushed, but because you pulled away with purpose. Make your energy expensive, the silent currency of influence. Your energy is currency, and like any currency, its value depends on its scarcity. The more freely you spend it, the cheaper it becomes. But the man who guards his energy turns silence into gold. You don't need louder words. You need rarer presence. Most men try to connect by flooding the room. They text more. They talk more. They explain, justify, overshare, all in the name of being transparent. But transparency without boundaries doesn't inspire trust. It inspires expectation. And expectation kills mystery. You think connection is built through effort, but in reality, connection is built through precision. Every glance, every word, every moment you give her must feel intentional, not desperate, not automatic, not a reflex of insecurity. Because attention that's always available becomes invisible, but attention that feels earned becomes unforgettable. Machiavelli didn't speak of energy, but he understood perception. And perception is everything in the world of power. Access equals value. And if everyone can reach you, no one will revere you. So stop being a free sample. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to be considered. Your time, priced. Your attention, filtered. Your warmth, measured, like fire in winter. Because when she senses that your energy is deliberate, she pauses. She slows down. She starts to ask, what makes him choose me? Not, why hasn't he replied? And that shift, that wondering, that subtle tension between access and absence, that is where power lives. You don't build desire by being available. You build it by being valuable, not by withdrawing love, but by controlling the flow. The man who gives everything loses everything. But the man who gives selectively builds mystique. She won't say it, but she feels it in how you pause before replying, in how your compliments come like rare coins, in how your gaze doesn't chase. It assesses. You're not reacting. You're reigning. Because presence isn't about being seen. It's about being felt. And the man who is felt in silence is remembered in absence. This isn't cruelty. It's calibration. This isn't indifference. It's sovereignty. Because when your energy becomes expensive, so does your influence. And the more expensive your presence becomes, the more others rise just to meet it. That is emotional economy, where your attention is no longer a gift, but an artifact, where your voice isn't noise, it's signal, where you don't pursue applause, you ignite awe. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be remembered by the few who earn the right to witness your depth. So stop giving discounts. You are not clearance stock. You are crafted, rare, priced, and what is priced is protected. The strategic power of unpredictability. When you can leave, you leave. The man she stops desiring power isn't defined by what he clings to. It's the one she figured out. It's revealed in what he can walk away from, but because he showed too much of it. Most men stay too long, not out of love, but out of fear. You thought consistency was connection. Fear of losing her. You were taught being alone, showing up fear that without her, they're always being available. But here's what Machiavelli would whisper always into the ear of the modern man. Prove your devotion. Anything you can't detach from what already you created was you. Predictability. And what owns you? Predictability doesn't feel safe. She doesn't need to hear you say it. It feels dead. She can feel it. Attraction in how fast and comfort. In how much intention, not chaos. In how your spine bends at the first. She doesn't crave routine. She senses. She craves rhythm, not with logic, but with instinct. And the moment that instinct tells next move. This man is no longer feels pulled by your presence. He's here to be chosen. She feels dulled by detachment. You became emotional software. Detachment changes everything. Reliable, not coldness. Predictable, not apathy. Forgettable, but sovereignty. The man who understands the game plays by different rules. Caring deeply, he knows that mystery but never collapsing. It's loving fully, the sacred tension that keeps the fire alive. Without making her your purpose. He isn't always she will test this. He doesn't text back the moment she hits send. She'll pull back, not to punish. She'll flirt with silence, but to create gravity, not to punish. Machiavelli said, but to ask the unspoken question. A prince must learn how not to be abandon yourself to keep when the situation demands. Most men do, and in the world they overexplain. Too much goodness becomes passive. They shrink their too much consistency becomes noise, and in that moment, powerful man, they lose the very thing that once drew her in. Withdraws, presence not without permission, but power without pleading. Not the man who can attach, but to control who can leave the table of staying because love is self-respect. And that man becomes dangerous in the most magnetic way. Too much sound, because his strength isn't in how much he holds on. So let her wonder. It's in how little he fears being left. Let her ask. He doesn't threaten. Where is he right now? Not just in body, but in mind. He simply stands that space and lets the silence speak for him. It doesn't repel her. I want you, but I don't need you. It pulls her in, and I will never trade my crown define as the man she can't fully dismiss. Can't be guilt. You want to be unforgettable. Can't be manipulated. Don't give more. Can't be twisted into something soft just to keep someone compliment. That only comes once in weeks, lands like a thunderclap. But if it doesn't, a smile held an extra second, not electrifies her nerves, but with peace. A message delayed by calm indifference becomes a poem. When a man can walk away, this isn't withholding love. That's when she wants to follow. This is shaping energy. Because that kind of tuning frequency doesn't feel like owning presence. It feels like when you give everything up front. She no longer sees a man orbiting her life. And what she doesn't, she sees a man who she doesn't value. Whole women don't drift because they stop loving. And something inside her awakens, wondering, not out of submission, but out of reverence, but not because always the first time. Be warm. She doesn't feel responsible, but not always accessible. She feels invited into a world but that never doesn't collapse without her. Control the rhythm, that is where leadership begins. And you control the pull. And longing is because born, love that's always how tightly you hold her, but in how fully love that's sculpted, yourself, measured, scarce. Presence over persuasion becomes obsession. The final form of manipulation. She doesn't follow the man who convinces her. She follows the one who never needed to. You won't have to beg for attention. You were taught that. You'll command the right words. With absence. Express the right feelings. She'll lean in. Not because you blend of charm, but because you pulled away with purpose. You'll win her heart. Make your energy expensive. What no one told you is this. The silent real power doesn't speak. Your energy is currency. It doesn't change. And like any currency, it simply exists. Its value depends on Machiavelli knew. The more free you spend, the currency of those without presence. But the man who guards his energy turns the more uncertain you sound. You don't need the man who is rooted in truth. You need rare presence. Becomes immovable. Most men doesn't argue by flooding the room. He doesn't text more. He radiates. They talk more. He
They
doesn't need her to
justify,
believe in his value,
overshare,
because his value
all in the name
isn't
of
on
being
trial.
transparent.
It's not a
But
pitch.
transparency
It's
without
presence.
boundaries doesn't inspire
And when he enters
trust.
the room,
It
he
inspires
doesn't adjust his
expectation.
energy to fit the room.
And expectation
The room
kills
adjusts
mystery.
to him.
He
You
says
think
little,
connection
but
is
his
built
silence
through
is dense.
effort.
His
But in
stillness,
reality, connection
it
is
bends
built
attention
through
without
precision.
effort.
Every
Not
glance,
because he demands it,
every word,
but because he
every
carries
moment
something
you give
rare
her
in today's
must
world.
feel intentional.
Self-respect
Not
that
desperate,
doesn't wobble,
not automatic,
it's not mirrored
not
back.
a reflex of
He
insecurity.
listens without reaching.
Because attention
He
that's
observes
always available
without
becomes
analyzing.
invisible.
He says no
But
without
attention
guilt,
that feels earned
and
becomes
yes without
unforgettable.
fear.
Because the most
Machiavelli
attractive
didn't speak
man
of
in the
energy,
room,
but
isn't
he
the
understood
loudest.
perception.
He's the most centered.
And perception
She may
is
doubt him.
everything in the
She
world
may
of
test him.
power. She
Access
may even
equals
try to
value.
shake his roots.
And if everyone
but
can
she
reach
cannot
you,
forget him.
no one will
because
revere
he
you.
didn't try to impress
So
her.
stop being a free
He left an
sample.
impression.
You are
Not
not
in what
here
he
to be
revealed,
consumed,
but in what he withheld.
You are here to be
There's
considered.
a gaze in his
Your
eyes
time
that says,
priced.
I've already
Your
chosen
attention,
myself. Whether you
filtered.
stay or go,
Your warmth,
my gravity doesn't
measured.
change. Like fire
And
in
that-
winter.
That is what
Because
creates pull.
when she
Not the
senses that your
pursuit,
energy
but
is
the posture.
deliberate,
She
not
pauses,
performance, but
she
the
slows
presence.
down.
Because
She starts to
presence
ask,
is a final form
what
of
makes
power.
him choose me?
When your thoughts, your
Not,
breath, your
why hasn't he
choices, your
replied?
pauses,
And that shift,
all say the
that
same
wondering.
thing.
I
That
don't need to be
subtle
understood.
tension between access
I
and
need to be
absence.
aligned.
That
That
is where
alignment
power lives.
cannot be
You don't
faked,
build desire
cannot
by
be
being
memorized.
available. You
must be
build it by
forged.
being valuable.
She will feel it.
Not by withdrawing
Not like
love,
heat, but like
but by
center.
controlling the flow.
Not like seduction,
The man
but
who
like
gives
certainty.
everything loses,
And she'll realize,
everything.
maybe
But the
too
man
late,
who gives
that she's in the
selectively
presence of a
builds
man who
mystique.
doesn't chase
She
anything
won't
he
say
can't
it,
keep
but she
without
feels
bending.
it. In
This
how you
man
pause before
doesn't need to
replying.
speak his word.
In how your compliments
his
come
worth.
like rare coins.
And when you become
in
that
how your
man,
gaze doesn't
you
chase.
no longer pursue her
It
heart.
assesses.
You become the
You're not
gravity she
reacting.
orbits.
You're reigning,
even in
because
silence.
presence isn't about
Closing
being
message.
seen.
The
It's about
crown
being
was
felt.
never hers to
And
give.
the man who is felt
If
in
this
silence
reached you,
is remembered
not
in
just in your
absence,
mind,
but in your bones.
This isn't cruelty.
You already
It's
know.
calibration.
You were
This
never
isn't
meant to
indifference.
chase her.
It's
You were
sovereignty.
meant to become the man
Because when
she
your energy
moves
becomes
around.
expensive,
No crown
so does your
required.
influence.
No apology
And the more
necessary.
expensive your presence
No
becomes,
performance needed.
the more others
Just
rise,
presence,
just immediate,
unshakable,
that
rare
is
and real,
emotional economy.
Because the final form of
where
power
your attention
is
is
no
not
longer
proving
a
you have
gift,
it,
but
an
being the
artifact
man who never
where
has
your
to.
voice isn't noise, it's signal.
Where you don't pursue applause, you ignite awe. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be remembered by the few who earn the right to witness your depth. So stop giving discounts. You are not clearance stock. You are crafted, rare, priced, and what is priced is protected